Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1623B, and today's date is July 25th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Something Big Just Happened, and It's Going to Change Everything. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, yesterday we talked about how Q mentioned that Trump declassified the FISA memo for Carter Page. And right now, Judicial Watch filed a motion in the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court seeking the transcripts of all hearings related to the surveillance of Carter Page, who was a former Trump campaign part-time advisor who was the subject of 4 controversial Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act FISA warrants from the Department of Justice. Last week, in a response to a Judicial Watch Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, the Department of Justice released the 412 pages of heavily redacted documents relating to FISA warrants targeting Page. The warrants provide evidence that FISA court was never told that the key information justifying the request came from minimally corroborated dossier that was created by Fusion GPS, a paid agent of the Clinton campaign. Now, Judicial Watch initially sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Justice and then filed suit seeking the FISA transcripts. Since the Justice Department does not have possession of any transcripts of hearings related to Page, and because such transcripts would provide the public with a complete and unbiased look at the role of this court, Judicial Watch respectively requests this court make public all transcripts of hearings regarding applications for a renewal of FISA warrants related to Page. Now, will this happen? We don't know as of yet, most likely not, or they'll delay it and they will never receive it, or they'll receive it after the fact. But we see right now that everyone is very, very curious about what all of this is and what it's all about, and a lot of people would like to see the unredacted version and have a lot of the IG report declassified. Representative Jim Jordan, he's out there saying, and he tweeted this, Brennan leaked the dossier to Harry Reid, Comey leaked to New York Times, Clapper lied under oath, McCabe lied 3 times, faces criminal referral, Strzok claims he wasn't biased, Rice blamed Benghazi on a video. If they still have a security clearance, of course, they should lose it. And again, we mentioned about the security clearance, that it might be revoked, but I don't think Trump is going to move in that direction as of yet. I think he's going to wait for other things to come out and then eventually remove it. I think what happens here is the mainstream media, the White House, they put this information out here and they try to push the narrative in a certain direction, and this is disinformation to keep them very, very busy, thinking that Trump is going to do something when he really does the opposite. We see out of the True Pundit, they just broke a story where the Obama administration officials, they have been accused of shutting down an FBI investigation into theft of U.S. stealth defense technology. Now, this report by True Pundit revealed that former FBI Director Robert Mueller and former Attorney General Eric Holder colluded with James Comey, who was at the time a general counsel for Lockheed Martin, to shut down an FBI investigation into the international theft of U.S. stealth defense technology from a small Florida company. The company had developed proprietary technology to protect nuclear submarines and Navy shops from being seen on sonar and radar. After a thorough, nearly 3-year FBI investigation into the theft, and on the eve of the case being presented to a grand jury, Mueller and Holder closed the case. Now, this was the original pay-to-play scheme, and it involves Mueller, Holder, James Comey, and Hillary Clinton. This is coming from Steve Morton, the inventor and owner of a rare robotic ship and submarine stealth painting technology that can help make the U.S. Navy's fleet invisible on radar and sonar. They allowed, he said, my technology to be stolen by European companies partnered with Lockheed Martin, and Comey was the top lawyer for Lockheed. Now my technology is being sold to the Chinese, the Russians, and all over the world to enemies of the United States. I wonder how much Hillary Clinton made on this, because she was Secretary of State when the probe was shut down. So we see at this point right now that from this individual saying that information was sold to other entities. This goes with what Hillary Clinton was doing with an unsecured server, where other entities would be able to gain access because there was no security and steal classified information. And those working with everyone else, like Mueller, Holder, Comey, and the rest, they can shut down any type of an investigation. And this is exactly what happened. We see 5 more arrests in the NXIVM sex cult and human trafficking investigation. Now, in April, actress Allison Mack was arrested as part of an extensive investigation into a sick and twisted sex cult connected to powerful Hollywood interest and New York political influence agents. Today, Claire Bronfman, the wealthy billionaire daughter of former Seagram chairman Edgar M. Bronfman, was arrested amid a group of 5 more women. Now, the new charges add a bizarre twist to a sensational case that generated headlines with the April arrest of Allison Mack, 35, who was an actress, and who allegedly recruited slaves for Rainier. A month earlier, Rainier, 57, was apprehended in Mexico and accused of sex trafficking and forced labor. He's being held without bail. Bronfman, 39, is one of 7 children of her father, a second-generation heir who captained Seagram's expansion during his years leading the company. She, Kathy Russell, 60, Lauren Salzman, 42, and Nancy Salzman, 64, were allegedly members of Rainier's inner circle who recruited and groomed sexual partners for him. Prosecutors said NXIVM operated like a pyramid scheme, charging participants thousands of dollars of courses while encouraging them to sign up for more and recruit others. Rainier created a secret society within the organization in 2015 known as DOS, with women serving as slaves overseen by masters, according to prosecutors. And we can see that this is just spreading, and this is really dealing with many, many wealthy individuals. We see that George Soros is pushing his refugee agenda. Remember, he wanted refugees to come into Europe. He was looking down in Africa. He turned to the EU and said they should pay for this. Well, it looks like the European Commission on Tuesday announced a surprise proposal to pay European governments 6,000 euros, or about $7,000, for each migrant they take in. So it looks like what they're trying to do is they're trying to pay off these different countries to say, take these refugees. The only problem is that the European countries are saying, this is ridiculous because the migration crisis barely exists now. The flow of migrants has fallen by 95% since October 2015. Why is this? Why? Because the refugees are returning to the Middle East, because the wars are ending in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Libya. The people are taking back control of their countries. So the refugees are now returning. The refugees were forced out of these countries by the deep state because they started war and they wanted regime change in these countries. And now the opposite is happening, and that's why Soros is going to Africa and asked the EU to pay to have these refugees brought up here and make it, appealing to certain countries to take them in. But the countries are saying there's no reason to do this right now. But again, they're still pushing the same agenda. We see South Korea right now. They're going to consider pulling troops away from the DMZ border on a trial basis. And we see that each side now is giving a little bit, and the other side is then giving a little bit. And what we're seeing right now is peace in the region. And instead of the demilitarized zone, they're going to be calling it the peace zone. And pretty soon, I think we're going to see this completely disappear. Just like we saw the wall come down in Germany, I think we're going to see the DMZ disappear, and these countries, North Korea, South Korea, they're going to be merged as one as time goes on. Trump is out there saying during his speech in Kansas City on Tuesday that he is ready to make a deal with Iran, adding that Iran is not the same country anymore. So what changed in this country? He also said this new deal would not be like the one that Obama made. And he continually says that Iran is not the same country anymore, and he's ready to make a deal. And I believe Iran is now going to say, okay, let's set a new deal now. Now, something changed in the country. Something is different in the country. Did they remove those deep state actors inside the country like they did in North Korea? Maybe. Now, Q has dropped more breadcrumbs here, and we're going to go through some of these. Post 1687, this is July 24th. The mainstream media, they are attacking Q like crazy. It's coordinated. They're pushing the conspiracy. Q says, enjoy the show, gives a lot of samples of all different news agencies pushing this. And Q went on to say, something big is about to drop. We're going to be moving into post 1688. And Q included the video that he had in a previous post about the mainstream media talking about Q as a conspiracy. And Q went on to say, there is no greater current threat to the American people than fake news media. Hashtag controlled mainstream media. Study Nazism. Compare contrast Antifa. Compare contrast socialism push. Push for rebirth. Who financed then? Who is financing now? Dark to light. Good wins. Basically telling us the mainstream media is following the same pattern as the Nazis back in the 30s and 40s. And we can see that a lot of their reporting right now is completely fake news. Post 1689, July 24th, Q says, and Anon said, Q marker. Q says, we do try. Q. We're going to move on to post 1690. Q says, you are watching the systematic destruction of the old guard. Power will return to the people in all caps. Q. We're going to be moving on to post 1691. Q says, we saw you. God bless Patriots. Put up a link to a video of Trump arriving in Kansas City, and people were honking, and Q is saying that the president saw them. Post 1692. Q put up a link from Twitter, and this is the Trump speech in Kansas City, and it says, what a wonderful day. Do you believe in coincidences? Now, when we look at the video or listen to the video, you can hear a song in the background. Now, keep that in your mind of what this song is. What do you hear? From sea to shining sea. This is a Q proof. Go back to post 1682, July 24th. It starts out from sea to shining sea, showing that Q knew that this song was going to be played at the speech. And this is a Q proof to say, yes, we're all together with Trump here. Let's move on to post 1693, July 24th, and we'll start out reading what this says here. Normally, intelligence passed on from a member of the Five Eyes Alliance, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US, to another member comes through an official channel for intelligence sharing. However, Nunes, upon reviewing the document that formally launched the FBI's investigation, said there was no intelligence shared through that official channel, meaning that the intelligence was shared through unofficial means. And Q put up, this is from May 10th, 2018, US brackets in New Zealand equals no logs, no flags, no records equals US security. And if we look at this, Anon put up and said, okay, here's what I think might be going on with this most recent Q post, where Q draws our attention back to New Zealand and Five Eyes. The Five Eye in New Zealand seems to have access to all U.S. intel. However, when you access data in New Zealand, there are no logs of it. So they thought. So let's say you're a former dignitary like John Brennan. You still have security clearance and you want to get in the system, get the data and leak it. The problem is, you'll be logged, and they're watching you like a hawk. So instead, you go to New Zealand and get the data from there, since you won't be logged. But what if they were being logged for over a year? What if the White Hats knew they would use New Zealand to download, sell, and leak? What if they took a step further? What if Black Hats were fed disinformation unique to the New Zealand download site? If both of these things were true, you could prove the person downloaded the data. The data leaked was unique to that downloaded piece of data. Very interesting, and it seems like this really was set up. So It looks like these individuals were going to New Zealand thinking they were in the clear, and they were capturing everything that they were doing. And again, we go back to Trump looking into revoking security clearances for Brennan and other Obama officials. Now, he did mention this out into the public. The White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, came out and said this. And if you were one of those individuals and you thought that your security clearance was going to be revoked, what would you do? Most likely you would run to New Zealand and try to get as much as you possibly can. Try to get as much information. Access as much as you possibly can. And what are the White Hats doing right now? They're recording all this. I think this was a plan to get them to do even more. And when the time comes, they will revoke the security clearance. We're going to move on to post-1694. And this is one big, gigantic bombshell. Now, Q put up this link to a news story on CNBC where it says Trump is poised to take control of the Federal Reserve. Now, there's a lot of seats open on the Federal Reserve, and I think Q is pointing to this news article for a different reason. And we need to understand this entire reason. We need to understand that to go after the deep state, to go after the corruption, to go after everything and change everything, you need to go to the source. And we've been talking about this for a very long time. And here it is in a post. Now, remember, the money that you have in your wallet, and if you look at this, you can see it on the X22Report.com site. If you come to the site, click on the title of this report, or if you're on YouTube, you can see it. The money that you have today, on the top of the dollar bill or any of the bills, it says a Federal Reserve note. This is debt. Okay, this is not something coming from the United States government. If you want to see what the United States government currency looks like, which is not controlled by the Federal Reserve, and you can trade it in for silver, you can look at a silver certificate that says silver certificate on top. It doesn't say Federal Reserve note, and it says the United States of America. This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury silver, where you can take this certificate, trade it in, and get silver for this paper. With the Federal Reserve note, you cannot do this. So we know back in 1913, there was the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. U.S. citizens could no longer exchange their bills for precious metals. Everything changed. This is a Rothschild-owned bank, and the central banks have been trying to, get into each and every government for a very long time. This goes back thousands of years. This is nothing new. Now, we need to go back to when this new $100 bill was printed. Now, let's start with the most glaring difference with this new $100 bill. And we can see that half of it looks like the Federal Reserve note, and the other half has color, it has gold, and everything else on there. And on the left side, it has Federal Reserve note. And it has Benjamin Franklin on there, and it has all the signatures on the left side. If we look over to the right side, we see gold. The 100 is in gold. It says the United States of America, and it has the Constitution on there. It says vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The gold inkwell, gold Liberty Bell, gold feather pen, gold 100, gold watermark, gold writing in the background, gold, July 4th, 1776. Notice the words. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Has also been moved from the left to the right. Notice how the color of the 100 on the bottom changes from green to gold as you move from left to right. And if you look closely, you can see there's writing. It's the Constitution. The people to alter or abolish it and to institute new. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So right there on the bill, it's saying that we, the people, have the power. Now, if you look at Q has this in different posts. Post 1369, May 15, 2018, 1495, June 13, 2018, 1646, June 30th, 2018. where Q goes on to say that the people have the right to remove this government and to put a different government in its place. And if we go back to post 138, November 11, 2017, Q did mention on the bottom of this post, fact, U.S. Federal Reserve is a privately owned company sitting on its very own patch of land, immune to the U.S. laws. Now, if you're going to try to eliminate the national debt, there's two things you can do. You can try to pay it off, which we know is really, really impossible, or realize the whole system is corrupt, broken, and illegal, and dispense with the whole entire central banking system. Remember post 1194, April 19th, and Anon put up, Federal Reserve ending? Q wrote structure. Now, does this mean changing the structure? Changing the way the whole thing is? We don't know as of yet, but from the last post, we can see that Trump is looking to take control of the Fed. And remember, Trump has Andrew Jackson on the wall in his office. Andrew Jackson got rid of the central bank. We also know that Trump talked about how McKinley funded the entire government with tariffs alone. So it seems pretty clear on what is going to happen here, where all funding, the way it is today, everything is about to change. And this is huge. Everything is going to be completely different when this transition is complete. And it looks like we're in the process in doing this. It looks like the plan is moving forward, and we are in the next phase of this because, as we can see, the economy will not get better. It's going to implode on itself. And it looks like Trump right now is pushing it to implode. Trump is going to take control of the Fed and most likely remove the Fed and restart the entire system. This is what they're so afraid of. Think about what the central banks are saying right now and who they're blaming the coming collapse on, because they're very, very nervous. Remember, governments can decide to remove the central banks. They don't need the central banks. They don't add anything to the country. They just put the country into debt. That's all they do. The people can decide, and this is what Q has been saying. If we don't like something, change it. Of course, you need the right people in government, and hopefully we do have the right people in government who are trying to do this. And it seems, according to Q, that we are headed in this direction. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.